Okay, I'm Bob Buxton. I'm from Catawissa, Missouri, a small town in the edge of the Ozarks, about 40 miles from southwest of St. Louis. And anyway, I grew up on a small farm there, and my father had the International tractors. Well, the first he had when I was real little, he had a Farm OH and a team of mules. And then as the time progressed, we got a second H, and then they bought a Farm OM, and at that time the M was one of the bigger tractors in the neighborhood there. So that's kind of what I grew up with and all we ever had there. And through growing up and youth, and still to this day we got International tractors there. And anyway, that coupled with a thing that I'm a kind of a student, an amateur student of history, local and regional history and American history, so that all kind of intrigued my interest. And of course the bias of growing up with it kept my interest. And then when my father passed away, we still had some of the equipment there still on the farm, and in fact I still have one of the tractors that he had got there. And what's interesting about it is that, well, he always said it was in 1941, but recently we figured out it was in 1943. It's what's called one of the war models. And we used that, oh gosh, we used that and we overhauled it and rebuilt it several different times through the years. But what was interesting about it, he bought it new there, and the thing cost him, I think he said, around $750. But the thing that makes it kind of unique was that it didn't have any starter lights on it. And he said at the time, the dealer wanted another $75 or $80 for starter lights, and he says it just wasn't worth that. So basically what we learned to crank it, we learned to park it on a bank when we wanted to start it. And of course we never knew the difference there growing up and using it and that, but that's what makes that kind of unique. And you don't see too many tractors without starter lights these days. And even though that was one of the more modern ones of the H's or the M's, you don't see that. And well, he didn't believe in batteries either in the other tractors, and so we learned to crank them or park them on a bank to roll them to get a rolling start. And I guess all that cost money, and that was probably part of it, and time. And so, but that's what we learned to do. So anyway, and through that I got the interest, and as I got older, after he passed, I got back and doing a lot of the work on the farm and that, and of course all this kind of came back, and various reasons I ended up getting a couple more tractors. A couple were given to me, well, several of them were given to me, and then I saw an article one day they're going to have a little tractor show over in western Missouri that featured International Harvester. So I told my wife, I said, I think we ought to go to this thing, and I think it was 1992. So we went over there, and we signed up for membership. I did there, and I thought that was pretty neat. You know, they had all these red tractors. And then in '93 in Boonville, Missouri, they had one of the first the roundup shows that was outside the Midwest, and they had about 300 tractors there. And I thought, boy, that's the greatest thing since sliced bread, ever was. So then I've been involved ever since, and in the organization, and things have kind of evolved. I got recruited to be a chapter board member, then an officer, and things have kind of evolved from there. But and so I've got a great appreciation of the International Harvester and what they've done. And what I like to tell people is that it's because of companies like International Harvester that made American agriculture what it is, through their innovations and their engineering, their technology, that enabled the United States farmer to be as productive as there is. It was probably, I think, as great a contributing factor as you could say the seed companies or something like that was, or equally as contributing. So I think that's very very big part of it. And of course, being interested in history, I want to preserve some of this history. It needs to be preserved, and I think this organization is doing some wonderful things now preserving this, and through the trust and that we've got, and the Harvester Heritage Organization, I think this is really going to pay some benefits and do some positive things there. And then now looking at the McCormick birthplace, the McCormick farm, I think it's an exciting venture too. It's got a lot of potential. But
what's that about? What's that about?
Well, the McCormick farm is where Cyrus McCormick was born in Virginia, Shenandoah Valley, Virginia, and it's where he made his first reaper. And he did some the first work there, and then later on he decided that there was probably more opportunities for the reaper if he moved to Chicago to both manufacture it and more application, because there was more farming in the Midwest than there was in the Shenandoah Valley. And what's happened, and the farmstead is a historic site today, but the McCormick family kept it for a number of years, and I don't know the exact date, back in the 60s or 70s or 80s, they gave the farm to Virginia Tech University, which is a land-grant university. And they said the stipulation is that you maintain the farmstead and the mill and the blacksmith shop in perpetuity. For that, we'll give you the farm. So they use it as an extension research farm now for demonstrations and that. But unfortunately, like most major universities this day and time, they don't have as much funding as they need, or they're pretty low on the funding because a lot of that comes through the states. And anyway, with their priorities, with their land grant mission, and they have certain requirements to give give knowledge and research out to the citizens of the community, and they don't really get any direct funding for maintaining this, and it's starting to show some age there. And even though they use the buildings and that, and so they're the preliminary thing there, we've met with them, they're really receptive to somebody working with them to maintain and help maintain and preserve this and conduct activities. So we're pursuing that avenue there. And I didn't know until recently that how all this came about, that they had ownership of it. And one of the other interesting things was, until the International Harvester every 2 years gave them a brand new tractor and some equipment to operate this. Well, when the merger came along in the 1980s, they stopped. So they've got some of this equipment, but some of it's in need of repair and some of it's not. And so basically, all the support's kind of, when they gave the farm away, and then when the merger, nobody's really getting the historical attention that they probably need, because that's a pretty significant event. And anyway, this kind of fits into the mission of the International Harvester Collectors Club, that to preserve and tell the history of the corporation. So that's the basics where it started. So that's one reason. That's really fits in, and that's, I think, the reason we're interested and kind of excited about the opportunity there. And I think there's going to be some real positive things happen down the road on this. And that's kind of the long and the short story there. So we'll see what goes on there. But I just appreciate anything the history, and appreciate seeing the products they made and how innovative some of them were. And they had a lot of really advances that International Harvesters come up with through the years. And it's kind of interesting to come up with an idea, and then they'd market and use it to the competitor who came up with an idea, or whether it became antiquated for some reason. Then they'd kind of over-engineer the next improvement, and it'd be leaps ahead of anything else that was out there. And I guess that's probably the way maybe some corporations work. I mean, I've heard examples of in the business news about how some other companies just kind of do the same thing. You get something good, you go on and you carry it on till the competition is better, or it becomes antiquated. So, but anyway, it's just fascinating. And the other thing is and I appreciate this more as time goes on, and other people tell me the same thing, is the people we've met through the organization, through these shows. And some of them are had a farm background like myself. Some of them are employees of the corporation. Some of them work in dealerships, and some of them are here because their grandfather's farm and their grandfather's interest in it. And that's become more and more significant as time goes on, to look forward to seeing these folks from across the country that you don't normally see. And they've all got similar interests and similar backgrounds in one form or fashion. So it's really neat to me anyway. So.
Now, how long have you been president of the International Harvesters?
I think I've been president now 3 years or maybe 4 years, I think. It kind of started out, the whole process kind of started out, I was asked to be a chapter board member. And there was, I guess, some issues, and the guy that was president there in the chapter was wanting to retire from the position, and I didn't know it, but I said, well, I guess I can run. And then I got elected by overwhelmingly, which I couldn't figure out at the time, but I think there was, I've kind of was kind of a predestined, I guess, for lack of a better term, that was going to happen. Then the first meeting was, we got to elect a new president, and we think that, Bob, you should be the president. And I said, no, I don't think so. And they said, yeah. So I blame him that was the start of all this stuff. I didn't seek any of this out, and I was co-chairman of a roundup, and that really, well, it was quite an experience, an enlightening experience, and then that kind of really, caused other things to happen. So then first thing you know, they asked me to run the national board, and anyway, here I am. So
you've been doing this quite a while with the club then.
Yeah, I joined in 1992.
Okay.
So that was, I think the club started in 1990 or something. So it was I'm one of the founding members of the chapter, but one of the early members. I don't know the term of founding. I wasn't one of the founders, but I was, I guess, a charter member of the chapter, whatever term they use. So it goes back. So it's been, I guess, 25 years or more that I've been involved here. So
It's a long time.
And so you've gotten, the neat thing, you get to see a lot of things come to these shows, and you get to know meet a lot of neat people at these things from all across the country and that. So
now I heard that the Red Power Roundups usually draw around 40,000 people. Have they always had that big of a audience, or have those grown over the years?
In the last few years, it's evolved. It's been an evolving thing. It's grown and got that much of a following where now some of the places we have are approaching that, and it's it's become the biggest one brand tractor show in the country. And we're kind of unique there in how we do that. I don't know whether we're probably one of the largest organizations and that have chapters, and some of the other brands or colors don't have as big organization, and the other biggest one doesn't have a national organization, which is surprising. So it's kind of unique, and some of them want all their tractors to be pristine, some of the other colors, and what's kind of unique about our organization is it's however the person wants to bring it, long as it's all there. Some of them, you'll see some of them be real rusty and been well used or come out of the use. Some of them be, painted up better than when they were new. So it's all across the board there, so I guess, the success of the Roundup has caused the shows to get as big as we are, and the people, and I kind of think how we do business and that. So it's kind of unique and kind of a sense of pride too to what we've grown to and what we got. So the challenge now is to kind of maintain this and continue to evolve and see if we can grow to the future and keep the organization going. So I think that's the challenges now, and the times have changed too and make things a little different. It started out as a bunch of guys that had a common interest in the International Harvester, and basically they brought the tractors together. We've evolved way beyond that because International was a company that in the 50s and 60s and 70s tried to be the one-stop supplier to the farmer. They had air conditioners, they had trucks, they had lawnmowers and anything you could think of, milking machines and and all that. So they were into a lot of things, and so that's what caused some of this to evolve there, and some of the uniqueness of the stuff that we see, and then to me makes it kind of interesting to me there. So on that, and anyway, there's still a lot of evolution there, and when you go to different parts of the country in our shows, you see different types of agriculture, so you see different types of equipment and different types of applications that the International Harvester tried to make. I guess I kind of think the philosophy was we can make something that every farmer needs, whether they're growing tobacco or growing cotton or soybeans or got livestock. We're going to make a piece of equipment that they need. And so when you move around the country with the different types of agriculture and the different farming practices, and that you see different things, different operations, different types of equipment, and they just do things somewhat different there. You wouldn't think that would be the case, but it is. And another thing I like to tell some people is that in telling our story in this day and time, agriculture, they're doing better at telling their story to the public because there's, depending whose statistics you use, is maybe 2 or 3% of the people are directly involved with farming or agriculture today. in the production side. And when you get to the processing side, there's lots of people. And I like to think we're maybe contributing to this a little bit to help educate the public as to how we got to where we're at and what agriculture is. And because you particularly get to some, most of your your urban areas or your more populated areas, the majority of the people aren't from a farm, or they're 2 or 3 generations removed, and so they don't really understand some of this stuff and appreciate it. And so I like to think we're doing some, we're helping tell a story, which agriculture is finally doing in the last few years, doing a better job of telling the story, and I like to think we're contributing to that too. So
I think you're doing a great job.
So thank you, and I don't know.
Thank you very much for your time.
Alrighty, well, hope that works.
Yeah, thanks.